Hey friends, welcome to another Wellness Wednesday. So I showed you last week my previous Sibo breath test result from August compared to my Aire 2 readings that I got while I did my lab test, my breath lab test for my updated Sibo test. And I told you that I was very, very interested to see how the Aire 2 breath results compared to the lab breath results. So what I did was I got my whole kit from the lab where it has the little tubes and the thing where you blow in and you put the tube. I did a whole video on it when I did it previously, so I'll link that up in the cards if you don't even know what I'm talking about there. But what I did was I did my 3-hour test with the little tubes for the lab, and every time that I would blow into the tube for the lab, like right after it, I would get my Aire 2 and I would blow into it and write down all the results. So they should be fairly close. So I got my lab results in an email a couple of days ago, and the results were not exactly what I was hoping for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the results I just got compared to my lab results from August and talk about that. And then after that, I will talk about the lab results that I just got compared to the Aire 2 results I got when I was taking the lab test. So the way that hydrogen SIBO is diagnosed is when you do your breath test, in the first 90 minutes, if it goes more than 20 parts per million above baseline, that would be a positive diagnosis. And then as far as diagnosing the methane, which actually isn't technically SIBO anymore because it could be in the large intestine also. It's called IMO now, IMO, intestinal methanogen overgrowth. Anyways, it's been previously called methane dominant SIBO, but that's not technically correct. To diagnose the IMO, if you have a rise of 10 parts per million of the methane at any point in the test, that would be a positive result. So back in August, when I got my test originally done, this was my result. I got a 79 on the hydrogen at 90 minutes, or by 90 minutes, it was at 79. So that's 79 above my baseline within that 90-minute period. So that's pretty high as far as the hydrogen goes. And then I got a 12, was the highest I got on my methane. So since it's above 10 parts per million, that is positive. So that was my starting point in August. Now, let me show you, as far as those numbers, what I got when I just retested. 77, so down 2 parts per million after 6 weeks of antimicrobials. Not exactly the result I was hoping for. And then if you look over here at the methane, it's exactly the same. So just looking at those numbers is pretty disappointing, more than disappointing. It's a total fail. But if you look at the actual graph, because there's more to it than just these numbers. If you look at the actual graph, I have a little bit of reason to hope that I'm making progress. Let me show you the graph. So what I did is I took my new graph. This was the new test result. The blue is the one that I just got here in October. The pink I wrote on there is what I originally got in August. So you can see the graphs are very different. Very, very different. And it's very interesting. On my first test back in August, I just went up and up, and then you can see in the large intestine time, this is the time where the lactulose would have been hitting my large intestine, my gas levels got crazy high. Crazy, crazy high. They just kept going up there and then finally started to come back down here. But on my test that I just took, I peaked here a lot earlier at the 60-minute mark, and then I went down. So that is completely different from my first test. So I honestly don't know if that's a positive thing. I mean, overall, if you look at the amount of gas being produced, it's way down. I still had the peaks that were very, very similar, that, diagnosed the SIBO as still being positive. But as far as the gas being produced overall, I'm producing a lot less, or my bacteria in my gut is producing a lot less. I wish that there was just a simple, like, up or down, yes or no, black or white answer to this. Like, I was really hoping that I would see, this number be cut down in half, similar to the results that I got on the Aire 2. Sadly, that is not the case. So I did go ahead and make an appointment with my doctor to go over this, because I honestly don't know if this is progress or not. I hope that it is, but I couldn't tell you. If anybody has any great insight into these kind of, gut things and stuff, let me know. I would love to hear your thoughts. So that is kind of where I'm at. My thought up until I got this test was that I was going to jump back onto another antimicrobial treatment round. And going into this, I knew that it would be most likely that I would need more than one round. So that's not surprising. I was not expecting a negative Sibo test result. That wasn't going to be very likely. So I'm not disappointed about that. I was hoping to see the number, gradually go down, and, you do a treatment and you see the number go down, you do a treatment, you see it go down further. And it's not that cut and dry, apparently. So my plan was to jump back onto another antimicrobial round, which I may still do. I'm still trying to kind of decide. But I did make the appointment with my doctor so I could go over it with her, and maybe she'd have some greater insight into the numbers than I do. Because if it's just wasting my time doing these antimicrobials, I'm not going to waste my time and money on that. I don't want to. So I just need to decide what the best course of action for me is. And one thing that Alison Seebecker has said multiple times in the stuff that I've listened to from her is that certain people just don't respond well to certain treatments for Sibo, because there's three main treatments. There's the antimicrobials, there's the pharmaceutical antibiotics, and then there's the elemental diet. And then there's possibly the carnivore diet that's just barely starting to get studied. But that's not one that Alison Seebecker I've ever heard her talk about. So of the three treatments that she has talked about, she says that there are certain people that they just don't respond to a certain one of those treatment methods, and they respond really well to another one. So it's possible that I'll need to explore a different kind of treatment than the antimicrobials. That's a possibility. It's also a possibility that I am making progress and the lowering gas overall was a positive thing, and that I just need to push ahead and do another round and then just see where I'm at after that. What I'm kind of thinking right now is that I will get back onto an antimicrobial round using different antimicrobials, or at least a different antimicrobial. Since I still have the positive methane Sibo result, I'm going to continue with the allicin, which is the garlic extract for the methane Sibo. And then instead of doing the other ones that I did in my last round, I would do oregano instead, which I've used oregano before and never had any bad reactions to it. So I don't foresee that being a problem. So that's my plan, my tentative plan. And so what I'm thinking is I'll do that like a 4-week round or so, maybe 6 weeks again, I'm not sure. And then after that, see where I'm at with a test. And if I'm still not, reducing the amount of gas the way I want to, and actually, healing and eradicating the Sibo, then I might decide to try like a super strict carnivore diet and see what that does to the gas levels. I figure it's like I could, jump into a super strict carnivore right now, but we're right at the beginning of the holidays. I'm not super excited about doing that right now. It would be a whole lot easier to do that January 1st, when everyone's jumping on carnivore. It's even World Carnivore Month. So I'm thinking about that, thinking about doing that, another antimicrobial round, giving it another try, and then from there decide if I want to try a different approach. But like I said, I have my appointment with my doctor coming up, and so I will take any insight she has and use that as I make my decision. Okay, now on to the Aire 2 device and how it compares to the lab result. What I did was I took another copy of my most recent result with the graph. The graph just makes it so much easier to see. And I wrote in my Aire 2 result also. One thing I want to make clear, though, at the beginning is that the Aire 2 device only measures up to 50 parts per million. And I knew this going in. And so I knew that my original test, I had 79 parts per million as my, actually, I think it was 81 because it was 79 above my baseline, which was 2. So I think I had as high as 81 during that 90 minutes. And then I had it even higher, like in the hundreds during the large intestine time. So I knew that the Aire 2 would not test that high. But what I had in my mind was, if it maxes out at 10, I know that it's either 50 parts per million or more. And I had that going in. When I did do the test, I never got a 10. I think the highest I got was like 9.6. Let me see. The highest I got was 9.5. And so I had thought that that would mean that I was below the 50 parts per million the whole time because it never max out. On the lab test, that wasn't the case. So let me show you the graph of the lab test with the Aire 2 numbers in there as well. So the green is the Aire 2, and I put this dotted line in here at 50 parts per million. So that's as high as the Aire 2 device can test, because they have a 1 through 10 range on the machine, and the 1 equals 5 parts per million as far as gas. And it's kind of complicated because they'll give you like 9.5 number, and then they'll have a percentage that's hydrogen and a percentage that's methane. So you have to do a little bit of math to figure out how many parts per million total, and then the percentage that's methane and the percentage that's hydrogen. So I did all that math. I have it all right here. So like when I got the 9.5, it was 77% hydrogen and 23% methane, which meant I was at 36.5 parts per million hydrogen and 11 parts per million methane. Anyways, you have to do some math to get it figured out. But it's nice to be able to compare with, the parts per million on the lab test. Okay, so you can see that the Aire 2 actually lines up really, really well with the lab test, like around here and at the beginning. They're very close. And it's like, I can't expect them to be exactly perfect. I don't fault the company for that. I mean, it's a different breath. It's not going to be exactly the same. And I wasn't expecting that. So what I found was that when my breath, parts per million of gas in my breath was pretty high, the Aire 2 obviously it couldn't go above the 50, but for whatever reason, those higher numbers, it didn't correlate well when I had those higher numbers. It correlated great when I had the lower numbers. And between the Aire 2 results and the lab results, both of them give a very clear, yes, you still definitely have Sibo. And I think I'm pretty confident in the Aire 2 as far as diagnosing and being able to keep track of my Sibo, reduction as it gets lower and lower, because I think it just runs into the trouble when you have a very high parts per million gas in your breath. But it seems like at the lower levels, it's pretty equivalent to the lab test. And so I would feel very, very comfortable using the Aire 2 moving forward to try to diagnose and try to, figure out when the Sibo is really eradicated or not. So my idea is that, because I did do the inulin test from Dr. Davis, and I got such different results. Like I had major high methane and almost no hydrogen when I did that. And so it didn't seem like a very good way to figure out my Sibo, because according to that, it was a negative for Sibo. doing that inulin test. So what I'm going to do is when I see my doctor, I'm going to ask her if she can prescribe lactulose to me so that when I need to retest, I can have the lactulose and I can actually compare the retest to the lab tests and to the Aire 2 test that I did with the lactulose. The main barrier that I've had to testing at home with the Aire 2 is that I can't get the lactulose without a prescription. So I'm just going to ask her and see if she would prescribe that. And if she does, great, then I can move forward without having to do the lab test again, just using the Aire 2. That would be really nice. So anyways, all that to say, not exactly what I was hoping for. I don't exactly know what it means. I have some reason to hope that I am making progress and moving forward. I have some reason to think that maybe I'm not. I will, I think, have a clearer picture after I talk to my doctor. And also, if I do decide to do another round, I'll have a clearer picture after that. Yet again, it is another wait and see, wait and just continue to do the work, and hope that things become clearer in the future. And if I do need to jump onto some kind of a very, very strict carnivore diet come January, I may possibly do that. We will see. Until then, I'm going to keep taking my L-Reuteri yogurt as well as the 3-strain Sibo yogurt from Dr. Davis. I think that has been really helping me. And so I'm definitely going to continue to do that. Going to continue with my ketovore diet that I know already pretty well controls my symptoms. Also, I am still taking the prokinetics. That's really important after you finish a Sibo round, just to keep things moving, because slow motility can cause Sibo or can cause Sibo to come back or to get worse. And so I'm definitely, taking all those like right before bed. And so that's the stuff that I'm doing right now. And I will keep you updated on what I decide to do moving forward after I talk to my doctor. I wish I was able to come on here and give you exact, did this, it reduced it by this, and now I'm going to do this, and it's going to reduce it by this. Health is just not that linear. It's always, a mess trying to get it untangled. And that's what this Wellness Wednesday journey is you guys just coming along with me trying to untangle my mess. So that's it for me. Hope you guys are doing great, and I'll see you again in the next video.